Welcome to the Known Victory Church YouTube channel. We are so glad that you found us today. We exist to make Jesus known and to be a place that anyone can call home. If you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe, like, and share these messages so we can truly make Jesus known in our homes, cities, and across the world. We pray that this message impacts you and helps you to grow closer to Jesus.
I'm excited for, what God is doing in our community and what God is doing in our midst. It's been really cool to see just what God has been doing in our lives and in this place. And we're in the middle of a series. If you've been with us the past couple weeks, we started a new series, and it's called Monday Morning Faith, and we're going through, really the idea is how do we have our faith stay with us, not just on Sunday when we come to church, but that it actually goes with us throughout the week. So we have our faith and we put on our work boots on Monday morning, or we go into the office on Monday morning, or maybe those of us, maybe we're stay-at-home parents, and maybe that's having faith even at home to show our kids our faith. It's this idea of having faith that lasts longer than just on a Sunday for an hour or two on a Sunday morning. And last week I shared a message called Integrity on the Clock. And we went through some of the areas in our lives we can all likely grow in, and how we can be people of integrity, which would mean that we're encouraging one another, and we have unyielding faith, and we're not compromising our faith, and that we're being a person that's honest and transparent and telling the truth. And that's really, important for us to kind of grow in and learn in. And if you missed it, we post our messages, because we're not live streaming right now, but we post the messages during the week. And so if you missed any of them, you can go to our YouTube page or our Facebook page and kind of look at it that way. But today I want to share a new message. It's called Light in the Break Room. To be a light in the break room. This is the idea, again, of being a light to those around us. Because one thing we know for certain is that there's darkness everywhere, right? We're surrounded by darkness. And this isn't a new idea. We're not the first generations of Christians to be dealing with darkness. Darkness has been around since the beginning. And I think sometimes we like to act like that the darkness now is something new. But the truth is, there's been darkness all along. And the role of the church and the role of those of us who follow Jesus, our role is to be a light to the world, is to be a light in the darkness. And it's something that we talk about as a church a lot, because I think it's something, what the truth about light is? Sometimes our light starts to dim. And we need to be reminded, and we need to be encouraged to continue to let our light shine before others, to not let our light grow dim. And our role has maintained as the followers of Jesus, as the church, to be a light in the darkness, a light wherever we go, right? That means being a light in the grocery store, and in being a light at McDonald's drive-thru, and being a light in our car and at the restaurant and on public transit, in our homes, in our workplaces, even in the break room. Even anywhere we go, we're supposed to be a light in the darkness. This means even be a light online on social media. To be a light everywhere we go. But the truth about being the light of the world is that we have to have the light. And in order to get the light, we need to spend time with the light. Right? We need to spend time with the source of light, the source of good, the source of love and joy. And we have to spend time with the source. And who is the light? Well, Jesus is the light of the world. He said it himself right here in the book of John. In John chapter 8, verse 12, this is what he says. It says, Jesus spoke to the people once more and said, I am the light of the world. If you follow me, you won't have to walk in darkness, because you will have the light that leads to life. See, if we want to be a light at work, if we want to be a light in the break room, we want to be a light to the people around us, we need to actually spend time with the source. Because Jesus is the light of the world. And that once we follow him, we don't walk in darkness any longer, because we have the light that leads to life. I think the question maybe we need to ask ourselves is I think, when was the last time we actually followed Jesus? When was the last time we think about our own lives where we were following Jesus' example, where we were living our lives based on how Jesus lived his life as the light of the world? I think sometimes we get in through the motions of going to church, and we have the motions of following Jesus, but we're not actually letting it transform our lives. We're not actually letting the love of Jesus and the power of Jesus to actually transform us from the inside out. So what rhythms do you have in your life to spend time with the light of the world? What strategies do you have in your own life and practices do you have in your own life when it comes to spending time with Jesus? It's impossible to follow Jesus and not be transformed by him. When we follow Jesus, it's going to transform us. I think we all can look back on our own moments where Jesus has transformed us. We look at who we were. Maybe it was last week to this week. Or maybe who we were 10 years ago or 20 years ago or 30 years ago. And we can see the transformative power of Jesus in our lives. It's impossible to follow him without being transformed by him. Even when Jesus called his disciples, it wasn't just a new adventure. It wasn't just to try something new. It was a promise of transformation. If we can see this in when Jesus called the first disciples, Matthew 4, verse 18. What does it say? One day as Jesus was walking along the shore of the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon, also called Peter, and Andrew, throwing a net into the water, for they fished for a living. Jesus called out to them, "Come follow me, and I will show you how to fish for people." Other translations say, "I will make you fishers of men." And they dropped their nets at once and followed him. See, when we follow Jesus, it's transformative. See, their jobs, their careers was fishing. You know, that's what they did for their life. And as soon as they had this opportunity of transformation, this opportunity to follow a rabbi, to actually be taught by someone who is going to teach them well and help them grow in the way and grow and learn, they dropped everything at once and said, I want that transformation in my own life. See, when we follow Jesus, it's got to be the same. That if we want to be the light of the world, we better let the light transform us from the inside out. That when we follow Jesus, it's not just supposed to be something we put in our Instagram bio. It's not just to be something that we talk about. It's something that's actually supposed to be who we are. To transform us from the inside out. He's saying to them, and he's saying to us, I think today, follow me and you will be different. You will be changed. Your lives, your careers, your character, everything will be different. Come follow me. And I think we need to be willing to have the same willingness that they had of dropping everything to follow him. Do you know what's not easy to do sometimes is drop everything and do something new. To drop your career, to walk away from everything you know, to start something new. It's not easy to do. I think if Jesus walked into your room tonight and said, hey, it's time to quit everything. I got something new for you. A lot of us, it wouldn't just be a yes, sir. It'd be like, let me pray about it, right? Let me pray about it. Sometimes God calls us to do something. We're like, I better pray about that. And it's like, sometimes it's just like we should know. We should know the answer. But it's this call that isn't just for us Sunday. It's this call to not just let God transform our lives on Sundays, but as we go through the week and go through everyday life, that it's just the same. It's supposed to be different. It's a commitment to change and a commitment to grow and a commitment to learn more about the God that we worship. A commitment to leave the past in the past and move into the future that God has for each and every one of us. A call through the storms and through the calm waters. A call and a willingness to be changed. A call to have purpose in the mundane. A call not to be swayed by the things of this world, but to be transformed. See, God pulled us out of darkness and gave us a light to carry. And this is what Jesus said. In fact, it's one of the earliest recordings of Jesus' teaching. It's the Sermon on the Mount. And one of the first things he talked about in Matthew chapter 5, verse 14 to 16. This comes right after he says, you're the salt of the world. Or he says this, you are the light of the world. Like a city on a hilltop that cannot be hidden, no one lights a lamp and puts it under a basket. Instead, a lamp is placed on a stand where it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your good deeds shine out for all to see so that everyone will praise your heavenly Father. He says, I'm the light of the world. Jesus says, I'm the light of the world. He also says, you're the light of the world. We're the light of the world. We have to let our light shine before others. And it's not just the others that we like or that we get along with. It's the others that really make us upset every day when we step into work. Maybe you have a coworker like that. You're like, I don't really want to talk to you today. Maybe you even have a coworker, sometimes you ignore them, so you actually go the opposite way where you know their offices, you go around so you don't have to see them. We do things like this. But to be a light of the world is not just to the people we want to be a light to, it's to the world. He's not just to be a light to those who believe the same as us and think the same as us and follow Jesus. It's to be a light to the entire world, no matter who they are, even who they worship, to be a light in the darkness. See, as we walk with Jesus, we begin to reflect his light. Ever since I was a kid, I've always been fascinated by space. I don't know if you're fascinated by space and the moon and astronauts. When I was a kid, I wanted to be an astronaut until I learned how much school you need to have. And I was like, that's a lot of school. And so I decided, I changed career paths early on. I never started that career path, right? But I was always fascinated by space and the moon. I always imagined myself traveling to space and going to the moon and stepping on the moon and going and doing a spacewalk. When I was a kid, I was fascinated by this. I know maybe some of you in this room are like, I was the same way. And I was fascinated by going to the moon and seeing space. And one thing about space is, if you know this, it's dark. It's dark. It's not just dark, it's dark, dark. It's very dark. As the sun shines the light, it doesn't have much to reflect off. There's not much going on in space. Now, there's a lot going on in space at the same time because it's so vast and big and they're discovering new things. But see, the thing about the moon is it doesn't create it's not its own source of light. It's a reflection of light. And what I love when I look at the moon, it's so cool. Again, maybe you don't like the moon as much as me. I think it's really cool. So I look up and I see complete darkness and I see the light in the sky as a reflection of the sun, and it's reflecting light. And I think it's the same for us as we follow Jesus, that as we spend time with Jesus, we're supposed to reflect his light into the world. We're supposed to be in the middle of the vast darkness, that we're the one who's standing strong with the light on, and a city on the hill cannot be hidden. What if our church, or what if the followers of Jesus were exactly like the moon in the dark sky? We can light it up. And we can bring Jesus into every moment of everybody's life. And we can see the transformative power of God in our lives, in the lives of those around us. We need action to follow Jesus. And to actually carry this light and reflect this light where we go. It's easy sometimes as we follow Jesus to say we're Christians and say we love Jesus, but we look at the patterns and the rhythms and the practices in our life and we're like, man, no one, if everyone saw the practices of how I spend time with Jesus, they would have no clue. They would think I worship Netflix. They would think I worship my phone. They would think I worship Facebook. They would think that that's where my information, that's where my life comes from, is from social media or television. We all need to have spiritual practices and rhythms in our life to grow in our faith and carry more and more of the light every day. Maybe ask yourself this question: how are my current spiritual rhythms drawing me closer to Jesus? Maybe think about it in your own life. What are the things in my life? What are the rhythms, the practices that are actually drawing me closer to him, that's actually changing me? What is it? And some of us were thinking, we're like, it's a hard question to answer. It might be a few weeks, months, or years since I even opened my Bible to spend time in the scriptures. It might be a long time since you had an extended time of prayer, besides just praying for dinner quickly so you can scarf it down to get your kids to the next event or the next thing. When we look at our own practices and rhythms, it might be a long time since we spent and had a private time of worship for ourselves, not just in a corporate setting, but in a personal worship space. Getting our hearts and our minds to a sense of awe and deep admiration for the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. What rhythms do you have in your own life that are drawing you closer to Jesus and allowing you to be transformed by him? It's one thing to own a Bible. It's another thing to let it change you. It's one thing to know about Jesus than it is to actually know who he is and what he's doing in your life. There's difference. It might be a long time since you spent time serving those around you. Maybe a long time since you stepped out in generosity. Might be a long time since you've had deep fellowship with other believers. It might be a long time since you've done some of the things that you used to do. Where are you at with your spiritual rhythms when it comes to being a light? If we want to be a light, we got to spend time with the light. And some of us, we don't spend enough time with the light. And then what happens is our light starts to grow a little bit dim. You know what I would think? I think most of us, when it comes to our spiritual life, we're not in the valley. We're not on the mountain. I think we're on a plateau. We're in the plains of Saskatchewan. If you don't know Saskatchewan, it's flat. You know how the space is dark? Saskatchewan's flat. But when it comes to our lives, where are you? And I think some of us, again, I don't think a lot of us were in the valley when it comes to our spiritual health, but I also don't think a lot of us were in the mountain. I think we're on this flat place where it just stayed stagnant for so long. We're in this place of maintaining our faith rather than growing in our faith. It's like, okay, I got to this place. I got to a place I'm comfortable with. I'm going to start to maintain. I know the bare minimum I have to do to make sure I'm actually spiritually healthy, but anything more than that, I ain't got time for that. We need to actually start moving up the mountain. Start making your way from Saskatchewan to British Columbia. We can't just do enough to get by. Some of us, we only go to God when we need something from him. God, I haven't talked to you in a while, but today was hard. And you know what? God will meet you there. That's the beautiful part. He will. He will meet you there. In our minimum, he will meet us there. But the problem is there's so much more. There's so much more depth and transformation that can happen when we're not just doing the minimum. When we're actually expanding and growing and getting to know him better. We think we can do it on our own, but we can't. We got to spend time with Jesus. I think for some of us, maybe the light that we're showing on Monday mornings in the break room is dim. They're starting to get weak. We're in the need of a battery change. We're in need of rest. We're in need of reflection. We're in need of being recharged. You know, one of the biggest things we hear when we talk about spiritual health, one of the biggest excuses we hear is, guess what? I'm busy. I'm busy. I'm tired. Work's been tough. My boss is annoying. My coworkers are inadequate, right? I'm tired. I'm doing everything. I'm tired. I don't got time to spend time with Jesus. I ain't got time for that. Maybe once I get this new job, maybe when I get the promotion, maybe when I can finally hire an intern, maybe then I'll have some time. That's one of our biggest excuses when it comes to our spiritual health is busyness. And you know what that means is that we're very exhausted, and one of the only things that's going to give us true rest is Jesus, and he's the one thing we're trying to avoid. He's the one thing that actually can give us the bread of life, the stuff that's going to actually sustain us, is not the bread we're actually eating. Maybe the bread we're eating is coffee or energy drinks or distractions. The things that we're like, I'm busy, but then we spend so much time in the wrong places. What do you do every day? What do you do every week? What do you do every month, every year to grow your relationship with God? I think we should all try and create space every day, every week, every month, every year to grow ourselves in our relationship with Jesus. I'm not talking about leadership. I'm not talking about taking a new class to get, a better job. I'm talking about grow your relationship with Jesus so we can actually know what the light is. This is what Timothy said about spiritual disciplines in 1 Timothy 4, or Paul said in this letter. In 1 Timothy 4, 7 to 8 says this: do not waste time arguing over godless ideas and old wives' tales. I love that. Instead, train yourself to be godly. Physical training is good, but training for godliness is much better, promising benefits in this life and the life to come. The idea of training for godliness. You know one thing about training, if you've ever done training for anything, it requires a lot of work. It requires discipline. It requires consistency. And I think it also requires purpose. Without these things, the training won't last. You ever try a new diet? You ever try, I'm going to the gym every day this week. You do it one time, that's a lot. I'd rather eat popcorn at home. Without goals in our life, we're probably not going to accomplish many of the things we want to do. See, I've never trained for a marathon, and guess what? I probably never will. Now I say that, maybe one day I'll run a marathon. Can you imagine? No. You're like, I can't. Yeah, I get it. The last time I ran was to try and get my kid as they were running out the door, you know? I've never trained for a marathon. You know what happens? I watch a movie and I get bored. Now imagine running for 5 hours. Like, I can barely watch a movie on my couch. I can barely have a conversation for 2 hours, let alone run for 2 to 5 hours. They say the average first-time marathon for a male is 4.5 to 5 hours of completion. Wow. The training required to complete a marathon is extensive. It's not an easy thing. You don't just get up one day and say, I'm running a marathon today. It doesn't happen like that. It's extensive. It requires running for short distances and long distances, and it requires nutrition and hydration, and it requires a mental health too. It's not easy to run a marathon. It's one of the hardest races to do is a marathon, because it's very long. All these things factor in to be able to actually accomplish the goal of completing a marathon. But you see, training for godliness is going to require a lot too. It's going to require work. We're not going to get to the place we want to be spiritually by just going through the motions and doing the bare minimum. We might be able to fake it for a season. We've all gone through seasons where we've kind of faked our spiritual health, I think. Or on the outside, maybe people are like, oh, they're doing well. On the inside, we're struggling. But eventually, it's going to be struck by reality of where we actually are in our spiritual health. It's going to require discipline. It's going to require sacrifice. You're going to need to sacrifice to grow yourself spiritually. You're going to need to sacrifice time in your life. If you're busy, you're going to have to sacrifice something to get healthy spiritually. It might mean saying no to sleeping in order to say yes to prayer. It might require saying no to the Oilers in order to say yes to fellowship and connection with other believers. Now, maybe you can do that at the same time. I'm not sure. But it might require saying no to your morning Starbucks coffee so you can say yes to generosity. It might mean even saying no to overtime so that you can say yes to reading the scriptures. It's going to require consistency. You might have goals for your physical health. Many of us do physical health goals. Maybe you want to lose weight, or maybe you want to get stronger, or maybe you want to build up your stamina when it comes to running. Maybe you want to run a 5K, I don't know. But it's going to require consistency in order to see these goals come to pass. It might take be a time to take a moment of reflect on our own spiritual rhythms in our own lives. See, the message is called a light in the break room. But if we want to be a light in the break room, it means we need to actually get connected to the source when we're not in the break room. See, once we're reflecting his light and once we're connected to the source, our cup is full. Our batteries are recharged. So how do we let our light shine in the break room? Well, I think the main thing is that once we're reflecting the light, people will see it. People will see it. You might look up tonight, and I don't know if it's cloudy or not, but you might look up, you're going to see the moon. It might be a different shape than it was 2 weeks ago, but it's still there. People are going to see it. See, being the light of the world requires to being plugged into the source in the quiet. You know what people will see when we're connected to the source? You know what they're going to see? They're going to see how we persevere. They're going to see how we overcome. They're going to see how we have joy in the hardest moments. They're going to see how strong we can stand when the winds are raging and the waves are coming and the storm is there. They're going to see how we're standing strong. They're going to see how hard we fight the battles in front of us. They're going to see how we treat those below us. They're going to see how we talk about those around us. And they're going to see how we honor those above us. They're going to see how we post on social media. They will see what we say about people when they're not in the room. Do you know what's the truth about health? Any sort of health? No one's going to do it for you. No one's going to do it for you. You know, you can get help. You can get, you think of when it comes to exercise and getting healthy physically, you can hire a trainer and get around people. But the truth is, it's up to you. When we look at our lives, maybe you look at your life, man, you're like, man, I need to spend more time with Jesus. It's going to be up to you to do it. I can't do it for you. Sometimes I'm hard enough doing it enough for myself, let alone somebody else. I might not be able to do it on my own, but it's up to you if you want to get spiritually healthy. If the only time we're getting filled spiritually is on Sunday, by the time Saturday comes, man, our lights are very dim. Our batteries are almost out. And every night, I plug them in my phone. Why? Because I don't want it to die the next day, because I need it for maps, or else I'm going to get lost in the city. True story. But I have to plug it in every day. I have to make sure it's charged, because if not, I'm lost. I worked as a delivery driver in this city. I use Google Maps for everything. If I didn't have my phone, I'd be like, I'd call someone, like, where are you? I'd be like, I don't know. Please help me. But it's the same if we're not plugging into the source, if we're not getting charged up, guess what? We're lost. You know what's going to happen? A storm's going to come, and we're going to get swayed by the waves, and we're going to say, God, where were you? And he's like, I've been here the whole time. I didn't leave. Like, God, protect me. He's like, I have been this whole time. Right here beside you. We might be wondering, why is no one seeing the light? And it might be because our light has grown so dim. The truth is, we need Jesus every day of the week. You know what we need Jesus in? We don't talk about it enough. The mundane. The everyday stuff. The dishes. And the laundry. And the things that we don't want to do, but we, like, you need to have clean clothes. We need Jesus every day of the week. In the mundane, we need Jesus. In the plateau, we need Jesus. In the pain, we need Jesus. In the victory, we need Jesus. Don't forget about Jesus in the victory. When we're lonely, guess what we need? We need Jesus. When we're in community, we need Jesus. Our light has to be our own. It can't come from our mothers. It can't come from our father's faith. It has to be our own. It has to come from the source. As we reflect and we spend time with Jesus, that's what's going to transform us. You know, our takeaway today is this: is to truly be the light of the world, we must stay consistently connected to Jesus, the source of light. You want to be the light of the world? You want to be in a city on a hill that can't be hidden? Take the basket off the light.